Do you truly believe there's a place for you here? My mother-in-law's words cut through the air like a blade, turning the rich aroma of the lavish meal before us into something bitter. You're just a daughter-in-law, not blood, she added, a smirk curling on her lips. With a dismissive wave of her hand, she made it clear, this wasn't an invitation to stay. Anger burned through me, making my hands tremble as I pushed back my chair to stand, but before I could leave, she raised a hand, halting me. Wait, what about the bill? If you're leaving early, you should at least pay your share, she said, smug satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. I met her gaze with a slow, deliberate smile. Why would I pay for a stranger's meal? My name is Maya, I'm 29, an office worker, and happily married to my husband, Tyrell, but our marriage has one persistent thorn, his overbearing mother. Living too close for comfort, she had turned our lives into a battlefield. My cooking? Never good enough. My homemaking skills? Constantly criticized. She'd barge into our home uninvited, nitpicking every detail under the guise of concern. Whenever I tried to confide in Tyrell, he dismissed my worries. In his eyes, she was just a loving parent. He refused to see the manipulation beneath her words. As time passed, her intrusions escalated. With the spare key my husband had given her, she'd let herself in whenever she pleased. She gossiped about me to the neighbors, twisting the truth to paint me in a bad light. I begged Tyrell to move, but he always had an excuse: work, finances, convenience. Then, everything changed. A major project at his company was a success, earning him a promotion and a significant salary bump. Seizing the moment, I broached the idea of expanding our family. Now that we're more financially stable, maybe it's time to think about having children, I suggested, hoping it might shift his perspective. He nodded thoughtfully. That's a good idea, but if we're having kids, I'd prefer to move somewhere more family-friendly. There aren't many childcare centers or parks here. Maybe it's time for a fresh start. At last, a breakthrough. I was more thrilled about moving than his actual promotion. But my relief didn't last long. The very next day, my mother-in-law showed up, unannounced. As always, I braced myself for another round of criticism, but this time, something was different. I've decided to celebrate my son's promotion, she announced. I've reserved a table at a top-tier restaurant. The food is exquisite, the service impeccable, and the atmosphere refined. That's nice, I replied stiffly, wary of her sudden generosity. You should come too, she insisted. I'll check my schedule, but I doubt I'll be free, I said, uninterested. She merely smirked. We'll be waiting. Something felt off. She had spent years excluding me. Why the sudden invitation? That evening, I asked Tyrell about it. She already told me she'd booked the place for us, he said. I'm looking forward to it. You should be too, Maya. Actually, I'm not, I admitted. It's an expensive restaurant. Who's paying for all this? I don't want to go. Why are you being so negative? He sighed. It's not just us. My brothers and their wives are coming too. It would be rude if you didn't show up. It was clear, he wasn't listening to me. If he refused to believe me, I'd let the truth speak for itself. I ordered a small voice recorder online, determined to capture my mother-in-law's true nature. If she tried anything at the dinner, I'd have proof. If Tyrell still defended her, I was prepared to leave him. The day of the dinner arrived, and dread settled in my stomach like a stone. I barely knew Tyrell's brothers, and I had exchanged only polite greetings with their wives. This dinner felt less like a celebration and more like a setup. When we arrived at the restaurant, a waiter led us to a large private room. My mother-in-law, Tyrell's brothers, and their wives were already seated. The table was adorned with an extravagant spread, yet there was only one empty seat. Tyrell frowned. Did the staff miscount the seats? I'll check with them, he said before stepping out of the room. You guys start eating. The moment he left, my mother-in-law rose from her chair, her expression twisting into a sneer. There's no seat for you, she said coolly. Why should I invite a stranger who simply married into this family? She leaned in slightly, her voice dripping with challenge. So, here's your choice, prove your sincerity and be accepted as one of us, or leave now and never show your face to me again. I didn't hesitate. I'm leaving. For the first time, she faltered. Did she expect me to beg, to grovel for her approval? Not a chance. Wait, she started. But I was already turning my back on her, walking away without a second thought. Because in that moment, I realized there was only one stranger in that room, and it wasn't me. If you pay the entire bill, I'll finally recognize you as Tyrell's wife, My mother-in-law's voice dripped with condescension as she leaned forward, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. You must be tired of being treated like a stranger. Pay up, and you can become family, she declared. I exhaled sharply, turning my back to her. I already told you, I'm leaving. Why would I pay for someone else's family's meal? The sound of her palm slamming against the table echoed through the room. Don't you get it? I'm offering to accept you. Do you really want to stay a stranger? She barked, her frustration bubbling over. I didn't even hesitate. I'm fine with that. Since I'm a stranger, I don't owe you anything. Goodbye. She lurched from her chair, but by the time she managed to get around the long table, I was already at the restaurant's exit. When I got home, I considered emailing my husband about what happened, but before I could, he walked through the door, only 10 minutes later. The waiter confirmed the reservation was correct, but my mom started making a scene. My brother filled me in on the rest. He sighed, I'm sorry you had to go through that. You got home quickly. It turned out my blunt declaration, that I was fine being a stranger, had stirred something in the other wives. The eldest son's wife and the third son's wife, who had always endured my mother-in-law's harassment in silence, suddenly realized they didn't have to. One after the other, they stood up and walked out. Their husbands, Tyrell's brothers, quickly followed, leaving my mother-in-law to face the consequences alone. I expected a storm of phone calls from her, and sure enough, within 3 hours, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Annoyed, I blocked her number. But then, a call from an unknown number got through. Hello, is this Maya's mobile phone? The voice on the other end was calm and professional. This is Officer Nakamura from the local police station. I apologize for calling so late, but we have a situation regarding your mother-in-law. Apparently, after being abandoned at the restaurant, she had decided to eat anyway, then tried to stick me with the bill. But the restaurant staff, already fed up with her antics, refused. They doubted I'd return to pay after storming out, and when she ran out of excuses, they asked for her card. That's when things escalated. She didn't have a credit card, she hadn't brought enough cash. She tried calling other family members for help, but no one answered. Frustrated, humiliated, and cornered, she lost control. In a fit of rage, she started knocking over vases and flower arrangements, screaming that it was all my fault. The restaurant had no choice but to call the police. When the officers arrived, they calmed her down, but she refused to admit any wrongdoing. The restaurant, unwilling to let her walk away scot-free, wanted her escorted home. Feeling a twinge of guilt for ignoring the police's call earlier, Tyrell and I reluctantly returned to the restaurant. As soon as we stepped inside, I spotted my mother-in-law, arms crossed, seething. The moment her eyes met mine, she exploded. You good for nothing. This is all because you wouldn't pay. A real daughter-in-law helps her husband's mother. You should have covered the bill, she shrieked, ignoring the presence of the police. I stared at her, stunned. Even after everything, she still had the audacity to demand I pay? One of the officers cleared his throat. At this point, ma'am, either someone takes responsibility for her, or we will have to escort her in a patrol car. I folded my arms. Please take her away. Arrest her if necessary, just make sure she takes responsibility for herself. My mother-in-law's eyes widened in shock. How could you be so heartless? You want your own family arrested? She pleaded. I tilted my head. Family? I thought I was just a stranger, I said coolly, and even if I was family, I wouldn't want to be associated with someone causing a public disturbance. I turned to leave, washing my hands of the situation. But just then, Tyrell, who had remained silent through most of this, finally spoke up. I understand that what my mom did was wrong, he said slowly, but, does it really have to come to this? Being arrested? I turned back to him, narrowing my eyes. Tyrell, she's not in trouble because of me. She dined and dashed. She destroyed property. She made a scene. The restaurant called the police. Tell me, exactly how is this my fault? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Then, instead of looking at me, he turned toward the police and restaurant staff and walked past me. And at that moment, I knew, whatever happened next, I was done. I knew exactly what he intended to do. Watching his retreating back, I called out, my voice sharp and unwavering. If you're going to pay for her meal and compensate them, we're getting divorced. Think about that. Tyrell didn't say a word, he didn't even hesitate. Instead, he pulled out his wallet. I sighed, there was nothing left to say. Turning on my heel, I left the restaurant and walked the familiar road home. When I arrived, I immediately began packing my essentials. There was no doubt in my mind, I was leaving. Just before midnight, my husband finally returned. "Mom's not getting arrested," he announced, sounding exhausted. The restaurant agreed to let it go if I covered the damages and promised she'd never come back. I didn't have enough, so I called my brothers. "Ugh, I'm so tired," he went on, rambling about everything that had happened after I left, clearly irritated by my silence. Then, as he finally took in the sight of my packed bags, he froze. "Hey, what's with these bags?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm leaving, we're getting divorced. I told you before, if you defended her, I'd walk away. Don't pretend you didn't hear me." His eyes widened, shock overtaking his face, then, frustration. "What's going on today? You've been acting weird all day. I get that Mom did something awful, but divorce? Seriously? How does this even?" "I told you." I cut him off. "I've been harassed for years. Everyone saw it tonight. And even with all that, you still chose her, a woman who was nearly arrested, over me. Is it really so strange that I don't want to stay married to someone like that?" His protests blurred together, meaningless and empty. I had already checked out. The next morning, I went straight to get the divorce papers. When I handed them to him, he caused a scene, insisting he wouldn't sign, but the moment I mentioned involving a lawyer, his resistance crumbled. With a reluctant scowl, he scrawled his signature. The papers were submitted that same day. And just like that, I was free. After the divorce, my ex-husband moved out, only to realize he couldn't handle living alone. He had relied on me for everything, and soon enough, his apartment turned into an unmanageable mess. Unable to stand the filth, he canceled his lease and slunk back to his parents' house. His brothers weren't much different. That night at the restaurant, they, too, had fought with their wives. Their wives, understandably furious, refused to pay for something that was entirely their mother-in-law's fault, but their husbands, blinded by years of obedience, drained their savings to help her without even consulting them. Worse, they actually believed their mother's nonsense, convinced they might be arrested just because their wives refused to comply. That was the breaking point. Both wives immediately demanded divorce. In the end, all three brothers, overgrown children clinging to their mother, found themselves back in their childhood home, stripped of the lives they had built. Their downfall became the neighborhood's favorite gossip. Word spread quickly, all three sons abandoned by their wives. My mother-in-law, unwilling to accept reality, dismissed the rumors and painted herself as the victim. She loudly proclaimed that her sons had been betrayed by their heartless wives. The brothers, clinging to their delusions, nodded smugly, convinced they had been the ones to win. But the neighbors knew better. Nobody bought my mother-in-law's lies. They had seen her true nature for years, and rather than offering sympathy, they distanced themselves further. Behind her back, she became known as the failed mother who couldn't even raise her sons properly. As for her sons? Mama's boys who chose their mother over their wives. They reached out to me, repeatedly, but I had changed my number, moved to a new home, and made sure they had no way to find me. Their voices, their complaints, their misery, none of it reached me. I had cut them off completely. For the first time in years, my life was peaceful. Gone was the stress of walking on eggshells, gone was the suffocating weight of my mother-in-law's presence. Instead, I found something far more valuable. During the divorce process, I grew close to the ex-wives of my former brothers-in-law, bonded by our shared experiences. We became each other's support system. Now, we go out for meals, we shop together on weekends, we laugh without restraint, unburdened by toxic in-laws and spineless husbands. Ironically, I almost feel grateful to my ex-husband for giving me the opportunity to meet such wonderful friends. The day after tomorrow, we're planning to visit a new cafe. For the first time in a long time, my future belongs entirely to me. It may seem simple, but this freedom feels extraordinary. I can live how I want. No more expectations, no more control, no more toxicity. Just happiness, just peace. And for that, I am truly grateful. I hope this friendship lasts forever.